which is what you all are the most concerned about, to be about $8.41 per month. Now, one of the things that I'll remind you of is that all of us use much less electricity in the winter than we do in the summer. So as you use more kilowatt hours, this increase will amount to a little bit more and then a little bit less in the winter months. The other thing that I'll remind you of is that we have the fuel factor, and that goes up and down. I mentioned whether natural gas is moving up or down. We've been very, very fortunate that it's been going down, and will offset some of this change. But the other thing that I'll need to remind you about is the $8.41 that we're referencing is basically an average for all of our residential customers. So some people, and the average is based on the average use of our average customer, and that is for 625 kilowatt hours a month. So for those folks that use less than that, the increase will be less. For those that would use more than that, then clearly the increase would be a little bit more dollars per month. But we filed yesterday. The process is quite lengthy, quite tedious. The next thing that happens is there will be a judge picked in Austin, because we had to file with the city of El Paso, with all of the other incorporated cities in our area, as well as in Austin. And that process will start. The city council will be hearing about the rate case today, as a matter of fact. I think they're going to review the filing that we made. It's quite thick. I think it's like 5,000 pages. It's just amazing the amount of information and data that we have to provide. But it has to be provided to make sure that those people that are evaluating our rates can do a good job and make sure what we're asking for is absolutely the amount that we should collect. Or if it's not, they will not allow us to collect anything other than what we have proved is appropriate for us to request. So the process involves people that intervene to make sure that we're not charging too much. The city will intervene. They're one of the best interveners. The large industrials will intervene. There's folks in Austin that will intervene on behalf of underprivileged families to make sure that the prices are set appropriately for that group. So it's a long process. We go through about 4 or 5 months of what they call discovery, and it means that all the interveners can ask us questions to clarify 5,000 pages of material, and we respond, and then at the end of that, we all put forth what we think is a result of the questions and answers. In other words, someone points out something you shouldn't collect for that or whatever, and after that, we eventually go to hearings. The hearings may not be until early next year, and then after that, the hearings examiner will listen to testimony put in by the staff of the PUC, the information from the city, the information that the city has evaluated in this process, and then the judge will make a recommendation to the commission. And we would expect, today's the 10th, 11th of August, we would expect it will probably be in the middle of January, maybe even February, before there would be a decision on whether or not the PUC will grant us this change in rates. And then after that, it takes a while once the rate change happens before we actually start applying the rates. And so this increase in the base rate that we're talking about will really not be applicable until sometime in the late first quarter or early in the second quarter of next year. So we've been talking about it a while. It's a long process. Everybody gets to weigh in with their feelings on whether it's accurate, should be changed, and to the extent then an independent regulatory body comes up with a decision, that's what we'd be allowed to change our rates to sometime in late first quarter or early second quarter of next year. So we're talking about it today because it just happened, the process started, but we're not talking about it because it's something that's going to change very quickly. An advantage that I've mentioned several times, the fuel goes up and down. In May of this year, just 3 months ago, we were fortunate because the price had come down to the point that we could lower the cost about 23% of the fuel cost. We were going to not have to collect anymore, and that amounted to about $4.40 or something. What was the number? $3.75. Oh, three.
Yeah, under $4.
Under $4, $3.75 reduction in the fuel cost. That will certainly be a help in offsetting this, but that's a different part of the bill. It's not the base rate. We're talking about this $8.40 being on the base rate, but it'll offset for the total bill. So with that, I will hesitate for a moment and see if anyone has any questions. I'd love to respond to any questions that anyone might have.
I wasn't going to speak, but I think I will. What happens if they don't approve
The process will end up with a lot of facts coming out, and they'll say, you asked for this much money because of this generator. We think you spent too much money on that generator. So rather than just saying no, they usually make adjustments. One of the things that we've done is that we've asked to get a return on the investment that was spent on this equipment of 10.1% on the equity. And always one of the issues that you argue over is whether it should be 10.1% or 9.6%. So there's always those adjustments, and whatever the final ruling is from the PUC in Austin will be in fact what we're allowed to collect. So the money that we're talking about is our request. Very, very seldom do you get, now you certainly deserve all that we've asked for, but you very, very seldom get what you've asked for because of the adjustments that this discovery process, when people ask questions, well, I don't think they should get that. They look at our expenses, they can disallow some expenses, they can disallow the amount of capital that we use. But one thing I will mention is that in this process, it takes a long time to plan for and to build generation. And one of the things we have to do is get approval from the PUC. So we had submitted numbers that showed the PUC that we needed this additional generation. So we got what's called a CCN, which is the approval to build the generator. But they will evaluate whether or not we built it prudently, whether we spent the right amount of money or too much money, and all of those adjustments would go into it. So my expectation is that it would probably be adjusted, but not that it would be just particularly denied. One of the things that's important, so many places in the United States is having a lot of issues with the environmental cost, and El Paso Electric has been very fortunate because most of the pressure from an environmental perspective has been with regard to coal units, and the coal units are getting old and not terribly efficient. And like I say, we have a sliver of a coal unit that we're getting out of it, and so none of what we're asking for is because of having to retrofit old units with increased environmental controls. A lot of areas in the country are having to do that. It's nice to have clean air, but it doesn't come free. But I think that our recent additions have all been natural gas, and that's the cleanest fossil fuel that you can find. Obviously, our solar that we've added is even cleaner than that because it uses no fuel at all. Any other questions? Eddie told me that if I came, I had to bring a pie. Can you believe that?
I believe it from Eddie. I believe it.
But anyway, as I walked in, it looks like there's stuff over there, and I truly would love to respond to any additional questions. Thank all of you for coming out on kind of a warm day. You know, when you're in the electric utility business, it's hard to get too sad about real warm days, because that means people are using a lot of electricity. But we've had a very nice spring and early summer. We've had a lot of rain, which has been great for our area. But August has been a little bit warm, so. Any other questions? Comments? Thank you very, very much for being patient and listening. Dolores, we really do appreciate you allowing us to do this.
Now I'm going to say the short version. ¿Quién habla más español?